Hey, what's up? It's Scott the Frozen Gamer. Just a couple days ago, I took my kids to the library, and I love the library. It's just such a chill, peaceful place to hang out. Unless there's a boom! Fire in the Library, 2nd edition, by Tony Miller and John Prather, produced by WeirdGiraffeGames. Now, it actually would be cool if this Fire in the Library was in the library. Anyways, I'm going to go through and do a quick how to play of the game, and then I'm a weird guy. This is Weird Giraffe Games. We'll see if this weird guy likes Weird Giraffe Games Fire in the Library. What? Let's get to the table. Welcome to the table. Fire in the Library 2nd edition plays 1 to 6 players. This is the setup for a 4-player game. The setup is really quick and easy. As you can see, there are not a whole lot of components to the game. The first thing you're going to do is stack each of the 4 book decks from lowest to highest. So there's white, gold, purple, and black, and you put them in order from low 3 all the way up to 10 for the black books. And likewise for all the other books. And then you set them on the table to make this nice little picture of your library. Next, take your book cubes, the white, black, purple, and yellow ones, and take every single one of them and put them in your draw bag. Take 7 of the red cubes. These are your big, bad fire cubes you don't want to draw in the game, and put them to start in the game inside the bag. The remaining 10 fire cubes keep nearby. These will be added to your draw bag later in the game. If playing a 1 to 3 player game, take every library cart and axe card out of the tool deck. But since we're playing a 4-player game, all of those cards will be in the deck, and you give it a nice good shuffle. Then deal 2 of those tool cards to every player to start in their hand, and follow that up by dealing 3 tool cards to the market. Pick the librarian color that you want to be, and just place your librarians to start the game next to the scoring track. Then make sure to give every single player a reference card because it has a lot of important information and symbols on it that every player will want to know throughout the game. Grab the appropriate number of turn cards per the player count. In a 1 or 6 player game, you're going to use all 6 cards. In a 5-player game, you're going to use 5 cards. In a 3 or 4 player game, you're going to use 4 cards. And then in a 2-player game, you're going to use 3 cards. We're playing a 4-player game, so we're going to start with 4 turn cards in the game. The other ones, just put back in the game box. You will not use them for this game. To start the game order, deal every player randomly a turn order card. Here we got first player. This will only happen to start the game. Every other round, we will be drafting these. In Fire in the Library, 2nd edition, we're trying to save as many books from the library until it inevitably burns down. The game ends immediately when one of the book stacks reaches 10, showing the burned part of the library, signifying the library has burned, and the winner is whoever has the most points. The first thing we do in the game is choose our turn order cards. This is signified by the sand timer symbol. Remember, at the start of the game, these turn order cards were dealt to us randomly for the first round of the game. Every subsequent round, there will be a draft for these turn order cards. You line up the cards at the center of the table, and then the lowest score is going to have the first draft of which card they want to have, and then going up to the highest score. So in this case, blue will grab first. Let's say they grab the 3rd card. Then orange goes next, maybe they want the 1st card. White will go next, maybe they want 4th, and then purple will go last, and they get the 2nd card because it's the only one remaining. Let's take a look at these turn cards. Each box here is where you'll place a cube you draw from the bag. These spots where there's fire on them are risky spots. Some cards will have more risky spots on them, some cards will have less. Underneath the boxes are the bravery rewards. These are either victory points or these tool symbols, which means to draw a tool card. For when drafting cards, the lower number cards have more ways to get victory points on them, but they are riskier cards with more risky fire locations on them. The higher number cards have less points available on them, but also have less risky locations on them, so a less chance to bust in the game. The next phase of the game is the player turns phase, specifically the saving books part of the turn. This part of the game is signified by this hand grabbing a book. If you have a tool like this torch that has that hand grabbing a book, you can play it during this phase of the game. On your turn, you're going to draw a cube from the bag and put it on the leftmost spot on your turn order card. You can stop at any time, but the further you go, the more you push your luck and the more potential points that you will get in the game. If you draw one fire cube and it's on an empty box, you're completely fine for now. If you ever draw a second fire cube, you've busted. If you draw a book cube on a risky space, you're fine. But if you draw fire on a risky space, even if you don't have a second cube out there, you automatically bust. This symbol of a book with a fire on it is the fire spreading phase of the game. That happens when you bust. So if you've busted, you can play one of your tool cards with this symbol on it, and it will help mitigate you from busting. In this case, I get to take off one cube and then another cube of my color, and I get to keep going until I either stop or bust again. As I said, you can stop at any time, and that will give you points. You can also keep going until you've completed a card if you want to risk it that much, where you automatically have to stop and you will score points. So this leads us to the next part of the game, which is scoring knowledge and fire spreading, which again is busting. If you didn't bust, like we didn't here, then you're going to score points. There's two types of points you'll get during this round of the game: knowledge points and bravery points. Bravery points is simply getting the number you stopped at when you were doing the saving books part of the game. So here would be 6 points. If we pulled all the way to the finish and automatically had to stop because we successfully completed the card, 8 points. Here's 2 points. If you stop here with just the tool symbol, you get to draw a card from the market of tools that are available. The second part of scoring is knowledge, and that is you take your books that you have saved and look at how valuable they are in your library at this time. So right now, white books are worth 1, yellow books are worth 2, black books are worth 3, and purple books are worth 4. We have 1 white, 1 yellow, 2 blacks, and 1 purple saved. So we would get 13 knowledge points plus 8 black points, which would move us up 21 points on our score track. If you stop on the bravery part of your card, you'll still get your knowledge points, so in this case 6, and then you grab a card, a tool card from the market, put it in your hand, and immediately replace it from the top of the deck. Again, you bust if you drew 2 fire tokens or drawing a fire token on a risky space. If you bust, follow these simple steps. First, remove cards from the library stack for each book that just burned on your turn card. So in this example, we'll get rid of 2 white cards, 1 black card, and 1 purple card. If you busted because the first 2 cubes you drew were fire cards, you don't have any other of the colorful books on your turn order card, the way you decide which card to burn is you look at this little number in a circle here in the corner of the card. Every card has one, and you burn the one with the lowest number. In this case, 1's the lowest number, so we burn this card for this bust. When you've busted and you get rid of cards, if you reveal one, like we did here, with a fire symbol on it, that means that you take one of the red cubes from the reserve and add it to the bag. Here we have to remove 2 white cubes though, or 2 white cards. We've only removed 1, so we remove the second one. That one also has a fire token, or fire symbol on it, so we put another fire cube into the bag. We remove a black one. That one has a fire symbol on it as well, so we put another fire token in the bag. And then we get rid of a yellow card, also a fire symbol on it. So another black or another fire token goes in the bag. Then, unless you have a tool card that tells you otherwise, all cubes you take off your turn order card and put them back in the bag. Fire and books. There's one plus side for busting. You get to take a tool card from the market, immediately replace it. I call this the do better card because it goes into your hand to help you out throughout the rest of the game. The worst part when you bust though is that you get 0 points for the turn. Now, next turn, you're going to have to push your luck even a little more to try to catch up to the people already on the board. The next step is a short step called after scoring, which is signified by this stack of books. If you did not bust and have any tools with this symbol, like we do with this knapsack, you can activate them now before the turn moves to the next player. After you play a card in this step or not, the play passes to the next player. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, if you successfully stopped and scored points or finished your card and scored points, you take every cube on your card and put it back into your bag, unless you have a card from this phase, like the knapsack again, that has this after scoring symbol on it, and then you might be able to save some cubes or do something else with them. Once every player has finished their turn for the round, we move to step 5, the end of round phase of the game. First, we're going to look at the 4 library stacks and remove the card with the lowest burn index icon on it. Here we got a 10, a 9, a 6, and a 4. So we're going to remove the yellow 3 book, which is a 4. It does have a fire on it, so we will take one of the reserve fire tokens and add it to our bag. Then every player has an option of discarding one of their cards from their hand. I have 2 torches. Maybe I don't want that. So I discarded that, and I take, instead of from the market during this part of the game, I take from the top of the deck and randomly get whatever that is. Then we go back to step 1 and draft turn order cards again. And again, we do this by lowest player points to the highest player points. So blue would go first drafting because they're not even on the board yet, then white, and then orange, and then purple. Whoever's on the bottom always wins ties, but in this case, you don't want to win the tie because that means that you have more points than the person above, so orange would actually get to draft first. It's confusing, that's how our family plays, but the bottom meeple always wins ties. The game ends immediately when one section of the library completely burns. In this case, it's purple, and we know this because the 10 is showing. There's going to be a 10 on the bottom of each book's stack. You don't finish the round out, so turn order definitely matters late in the game. There are some tool cards with end of game scoring effects on them, like this lockbox, so make sure to add those to your game score at this time. Whoever has the highest total is the winner of the game. Again, any meeple on the bottom of a stack of where people are tied breaks and wins the ties, so in this case, orange would have beaten blue and would have been the winner of the game. Once you know the base game here, there's a couple of solo variants that are in another rule book in the game, and you can learn them from there. But they're very similar to the base game, so it's really easy to learn the solo variant. That's how you play the second edition of Fire in the Library. Let's get back up so I can tell you what my thoughts of the game are. Hey everyone, I'm back. So let's go and find out what I think about Fire in the Library second edition. So overall, I really like this game. I am going to get the first negative out of the way right at the beginning, though. So this is not indicative of what I think of the game. This is just a negative that kind of annoyed me in the game. There's 2 rule books. That's fine. A lot of games have 2 rule books. The main rule book's here. This one has some solo variants in it, which is great that that's in a second rule book. It has a sample turn for the game, which I also like. It has some tool card details, which is good to have, like a little appendix type of thing. But what bugged me is that the turn cards, how the turn cards work, how the tool cards work, and some of the symbols here for tools is in this rule book and not the main rule book. So I was looking, I didn't read this because I thought this was originally was just the solo book only and stuff like that. I didn't realize that there was going to be more important stuff to know of the game, like how the cards work. That was not in this, so I was like scrambling trying to figure out how to play the game, but it was really right here the whole time. The other thing is that this reference card is super important because there's some symbols on it, I believe these ones, that are not in the rule book at all, but only on the reference card. So very handy to know. Again, I missed that for a while and was looking on other sites on the internet trying to figure out what some of these symbols meant when I had it the whole time. A little bit nitpicky, but important when you're trying to learn the game. Overall, though, the rest of the rulebook is very good and very clear. So of actually how to play the game, and they did a good job with everything else in the rulebook. So let's talk about the overall aesthetics of the game. So first, let's talk about the box. I love this box. It is a pull-out box with a little finger hole to pull it out. And then on the back side of the pull-out is the scoreboard, the score tracker for the game. And I think this is really neat. I know in the first edition they had it open via magnet, I believe, but it opened like a book. And then the score track was on the inside of that lid of the book, but it didn't always lay flat. Solved it, still looks like a book, gets a nice smooth play track, score track on it without a need of an extra component in the game to keep the price of the game down and affordable for what the type of game is. The art on the cards is great. I love that the 4 decks come together to make up a library, and as you start burning through the cards, literally and not burning through them literally, but as the way we think burning. I am rambling. What am I talking about? As we get through the cards, more and more fire comes on them. It still keeps the shape of the library intact, but you'll see more and more fire as more sections of the library burn. I think that's a really, really, really cool mechanism that they did in the game. The way that they get rid of the cards in the game too, with sometimes you're getting rid of them by what books burned, what color books burned during your turn order is great. Sometimes you get rid of them by this index number, which is also great at the end of each round. You do it that way, and you always get rid of one card of the game that way. And it's really easy to know when you have to add a cube into your bag to draw cubes from with this fire symbol on it. Just really well done. The iconography is really good in the game as well throughout. I like that the player color choices in the game, I believe these are colorblind friendly. There's also yellow and black because the game does play up to 6 players. So very nice, pops really well on the scoreboard. Mechanism of the game, it's a really good push your luck game. I wish more people talked about this as much as they do about Can't Stop, a game that I also love. There's just as much tension in this. When I played this game, the games have come down. The last game I played came down to the last round, literally through 3 people. We were playing a 4-player game, and first I had the first turn. I knew the game was going to end, so we all were grabbing. I was in the last of the 3 people that were contending, and we all knew that the game was going to end this round probably, so we were all trying. I took the first player card and had to risk it the most. Then the next player took the second player card, and then the next player took the third player card. The last player got the last card of the game and was hoping it would get to their turn. And so I went first, and I got just enough to take the lead. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to stop here, and hopefully you guys bust and lose because I have the lead, and I might as well just stop while I have the lead. Then the next player went, and they took the lead over from me, but we knew that the game was still going to go if they stopped. If they kept going, the game might end, but then I would win instead of them, because that would mean that they busted if the game ended. So it just behooved them to stop as well. And then the last player went, and they got a fire right away, and they had to push it till they tried to win the game or they busted, and they got the first cube they picked out was a fire cube, and then from there they picked out a couple more cubes, and I think the fourth cube that they picked out got them enough points to retake the lead and win the game by 1 point over the second place and by like 3 points over me that came in third place that game. Just really high tension. Now some of it's a push your luck game, so some of it you'll know right away that, like in this case, if I had this card, I'm probably, unless I get a red cube, I'm just going to keep going. If I get a red cube, well, maybe now I've got some choices. Do I want to keep pushing it or not? Or on a card like this, I know for sure I'm always going to take the 1. Now, do I want to risk it by how many red cubes are in the bag, how far behind I am? Sometimes the choices are fairly easy, but sometimes they are difficult choices. Should I keep going? Should I risk it? If I'm way in last, I might want this card that gets a lot of bravery points, but I'm really risking any red cube from here to here. If I don't have any mitigation tools in the game then that can mitigate fire, then I'm going to bust, and now I'm going to even be further behind. So the choices are so hard in that part of the game, and the turn order really does matter, especially at the end of the game. As I said in the example, like if I went last in that example, I may have not gotten a turn at all, and then I definitely wouldn't have had a chance to win the game. Tool cards are essential in the game. I like that they have them. It just adds one more level off of a basic push your luck game like Can't Stop. It just helps mitigate things throughout the game. There's things that help when you get fire. There's end game scoring things. This one allows you to score your bravery twice in the game. There's all different types of tool cards. They all work really well. There's a couple that were a little confusing. They have some appendicized in the second book of the game. In this book of the game, they talk about some of the cards, but they don't talk about all of them. And some of the ones that they don't talk about are the ones that I needed to know more about, that I didn't quite understand. But I think as a family or whoever you're playing with as a game group, you can decide what it means before the game starts, or you just tell them what it means based off of what you think. They're a little vague, but not horribly. Like, it's not game breaking by any means whatsoever. The game is just fun. Very traditional push your luck. I like the bag building part of it. Not bag building, but bag pulling part of it, where you're just pulling out of the bag. I like that the game gets harder when people bust, because more cubes, fire cubes, are going to get in the game, the more that these little fire symbols get revealed. So even though all the cubes that get pulled go back into the bag at the end of each player's turn, there's always going to be the same amount of cubes in here, except more fire gets added. So I like that, because I might have it easy going the very first in the first game. If I'm the first turn of the game, even though I have this harder card, there's only 7 red cubes in the bag compared to all the book cubes that are in it. And so I might score really high this time. But later, maybe the second person then busted, and then the third person who has an easier card now has an extra cube in the bag, because maybe 2 or 3 extra cubes in the bag, depending on how many the fire symbols got revealed when we had to burn parts of the library. So it gets harder and harder as the game goes on, and more fire cubes are in the bag. And then by the end of the game, this card is really hard to score, because there's a good chance you're going to bust on it with all these risky spaces. Even though at the beginning of the game, this card's really nice, because there's a decent chance you're not going to bust and get high points. So high bravery points. So that balances out really well, and it's just really well done. Overall, this is a game that you can play with family. I've played it with my 7-year-old. You can play it with adults. Adults are going to like it just as much as they like any other push your luck game. It's quick to play. I mean, you're talking 30 minutes with a rule teach. I can't imagine it going much longer than that. The last game where I talked about, we were down to the card that no matter which card would bust next, would end the game. We were on to the second to last card for each color, for each section of our library. And that game still took about 30 minutes to play. Again, really easy to teach, really easy to play. Doesn't take much gaming experience to play this one. Quick, easy, push your luck. A notch up from something like Can't Stop, but has just as much tension in it as Can't Stop or any other good push your luck game. I do highly recommend Fire in the Library. Got 2 fires coming out of my head. Love it. Fire in the Library, 2nd edition, Weird Giraffe Games. Tony Miller, John Prather, good job. That's it. Peace, stay cool.